The process had been tested, a tried and tested proof of concept. Thoth so had little time for the squeamish, and this was the most part of the readily accepted absolute respect for him and family. His father had perfected it. His father's father had perfected it. Each generation of males, each by the name Thoth, had for as long as the sky was blue, used this formula. It was written in emerald brought from the most distant wilderness, and he, like his father, had been there to get it. Rounding the great desert's cap could often be fraught with peril, little compared to those on the land, where the rivers and minor forests at the edge of the Sahara would eventually meet the great green expanse. The tribes weren't often unfriendly to foreigners, but some were. The one place the tribes could be bartered with was the edge of the great green heart, the wildest, most ferocious place in the known world. Some knew of others, such as those who successfully sailed the ocean to the twin land of the African homeland, called Turtle Island. There was a similar way by the shore, where tribal women often called to the sailors by and by, bearing so dazzling a beauty with gifts of fruit. Often the young virgin men would jump ship to swim into their arms. This journey didn't end so splendidly for Thoth. He had his father's bidding to do back home in Mora. The tribal traders gathered every day by the coast, keen to be the first to snatch up any trading bounties from afar. Thoth and his small group of guards, his closest friends too, had brought the best selection of spices they knew these tribal folk desired most. In turn, they helped themselves to a variety of rare compounds, unique and deadly extracts, and of course, the most precious of stones, including the emerald. Thoth knew what he needed was as large and flat a piece as possible on which to carve his ancestral alchemical formula. Many generations had lost this text, some were stolen, others broken in half, but it was a custom and rite of passage for each of the royal family of Moran to scribe their own. The tool with which to do so was of course the ultimate trade, and his father had guaranteed him use of his diamond pen, should one not be available to trade. He was of course intent on claiming just such a prize for himself. The boldest trader of the Green Heart knew it all and had shed much blood to bring the tool to Thoth. Thoth could see it on his face, his teeth red with betel nut, his eyes gouging, darting back and forth at the prior owner of the prize. His hair dreaded and raised with frizz and dye. He fearlessly encouraged the trade now, asking for the taking of this, his prize diamond, a 2-inch long wide thumb piece with a sharp edge. The price was to be one of Thoth's escorts, and of course friend, bearer of all knowledge and elite shipwright. Thoth asked,
"Do you go to Turtle Island?"
Yep.
"Then he will build your way."
Perhaps if not himself, someone was keen to go. Thoth motioned to one of his company to join the tribe, and doing without a second thought, bid his friends goodbye and safe journey. He had been a good friend to Thoth, but never doubting the need, he would live just as rich a life in the Congo as Thoth did in Mora. The sandstone plain was long, and it would bear him many cubes for building. Such was easy as running water, Thoth knew. He must, however, commence at the darkest, hardest part of the world. The granite was no working man's friend. It was during his youth and a small portion of young adulthood it had been made, but it was a grand box, made of pure granite, carved by hand, and larger than himself, 3 times long. Within it sat the capstone, another masterwork of the same time making. Both these key instruments were precisely measured and carved finer than one could slip a hair between the two together. The capstone was for being placed within the chest at the time Thoth's mate had become chosen, a part of his doing and a part of each of their parents. The union had been ordained, and the flat stone side prepared for lowering ever so delicately into the chest, and all as the 2 12-year-olds remained oblivious in their respective places. Thoth ensuring the scale and times were all recorded on the emerald tablet, would have once the two were married and copulating, the lowering of this capstone completed. This alone was a tediously delicate process, yet not compared to what was to come. Whence the new generation was being created, the slow sealing of the box with capstone within was ongoing. Once the pregnancy was determined, the process could be reversed, along with the planning for the next homage of embarkation, as dependent on the time between marriage and the next generation's arrival into the world. Through the birth of his grandson or daughter, Thoth would oversee the building around the chest in which awaited the capstone, so unsealed and ready for removal and placement at completion of the build, as mandated with his own death. In turn, the grander the building in which was to be built for the expanding generations, the longer a process to place the capstone, and as rumour had it, he would soon find out, the more grueling a death for the prior. So were the sacred episodical processes of the Moroccans. This has been a short story by J.S. Jowett.